Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 31 of the Future of Work show. Frankly, I just can't believe it's been 6 months and we've been having these conversations most weeks. We've had some amazing guests to the show. We've had scholars, academics, researchers, practitioners, CEOs, presidents. And in that vein, I have a very, very special guest with me today on a topic that's actually a little bit unusual and different from the kinds of topics we usually cover on the Future of Work show. So, if you've been following the show for a while, you know that sometimes we get a little bit technical and academic and we speak about details behind organizational network analysis, design thinking, innovation, artificial intelligence. But today's topic is a lot more personal. It's about how do we develop careers in a world where everything is changing so fast. And I have with me Ankit Vengadukar, who is the managing editor of LinkedIn News. And he's going to speak about both his own senior leader at LinkedIn to share some of his insights into what it will take to build future careers from here on. So I'm just bringing him in. Hi, Ankit. Thank you so much for joining.
Hi, Charlene. So good to be here on a Saturday afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. And while you were doing your introduction, I was wondering to myself, my God, after incredible academic scholars and Whartons and Yales and Harvards and all the CXOs, such an oddity to have me here, but more than happy.
No, I am so delighted, Ankit. And I have to share, honestly, I got interested in having you as a guest when I read through some of your own personal career journey. And I thought, okay, I think your personal career journey looks a bit like what I would expect future careers to look like. And then, of course, it's a treat that you also happen to be working for LinkedIn, which is yet another vantage point. And, I thought this is going to be amazing. I'm going to have you on the show. And hopefully, so many of us are going to learn something we didn't know before about what it's going to take to build future careers. So happy when you said yes, frankly.
Fingers crossed. Thanks so much. Very gracious of you to have me. I must clarify at the outset itself, my career with LinkedIn is literally 4 months old. 4 months. So I'm very, very, very new here. It's been a phenomenal 4 months. I call it the pandemic miracle. That's what I call it. And also for so many people who are sometimes they're like, I'm not really scoring a job on LinkedIn. I just like them to know that I applied for a job at LinkedIn on LinkedIn and got through in the middle of a pandemic with all remote interviews. So it works.
I noticed you say that in your LinkedIn profile itself, right? Got it on from LinkedIn or something like that. You say,
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So,
so
Shalini, really looking forward to this conversation.
oh, thanks. So, Ankit, I have read through your career profile and I know some of the incredible jumps you've made from hospitality to media to being an anchor, entrepreneur, and now managing editor of LinkedIn News. There's absolutely no way this kind of a career could have been planned right at the outset. In fact, I'm pretty sure when you started, I'm not even sure if LinkedIn existed at the time. Or if it did, probably this job didn't exist, even if the organization did.
You're
So,
absolutely right.
so could you share a little bit about, just a little bit about your career journey for all those who don't know, and maybe a little bit of insight into how you made some of these jumps across very, very different kinds of industries and very, very different kinds of roles. What helped you there in the process itself?
In one word, a whole lot of luck. I just want to get that out of the way. I know a lot of such conversations don't believe in esoteric words like luck and fate and destiny, but I would be crazy to not attribute the little bit of success that I've had in my life to luck. But we'll get to that in a bit. So I studied hotel management at IHM Mumbai in Mumbai. It's called Dadar Catering College, very popularly in Mumbai. It's almost a landmark. Growing up, completely clueless, didn't really know what I wanted to do. Compare that to my, I have an identically twin brother, Ankush. Compare that to Ankush, who was absolutely clear about what he wanted to do in his life after school. He was really interested in science. I scored decent marks in 10th board. So as is the case in any middle-class Maharashtrian family in Mumbai, They're like, great, you scored great marks. So of course, you have to study science or commerce. Obviously, nobody's even going to consider arts, right? Because way back in 1998, it was sort of considered a taboo for a kid to do arts. Meant, oh my God, this person's either slightly slow, not interested, or good in academics. So that was the context over there. So went ahead, did 11th and 12th, which in Mumbai and Maharashtra is also considered college, junior college, FC, JC. And I don't know why, but I ended up doing PCM and B. So we were like, let's go all in physics, chemistry, maths, and bio. How can I make it worse for me? um, Only to realize that I don't like any of these subjects. And oh my God, I was struggling through JC. So my only criteria for any graduate course was I don't want anything to do with PCMB in it. There was inspiration closer in the house because my dad's father, he had dad's brother, sorry, my uncle had been a hospitality person for close to 2 decades. So he had spent almost 20 years in the Taj group of hotels. My father never wanted anything to do with a corporate job. He was just like, oh my God, I don't understand how people do this. He was always an entrepreneur, ever since he was independent, etc. And I wasn't really interested in real estate or entrepreneurship with him because I just couldn't, make head or tail of it. So hospitality was the inspiration. Went and studied at IHM Mumbai, 3 years of that. Learned incredible amount of stuff about food and beverage. And come to think of it, growing up, we've all loved food in the house. 2 boys in the house. We've always assisted mom in the kitchen making puri bhaji or besan laddus. Or Holi is coming up, making puran puri, katachi amti. So food has been a big center of growing up. And so this was building on top of that. So, my love for food and knowledge of beverage, that was incredible. Started working right from college, Shalini. In college, I'm guessing also this must be the case with a lot of middle class families. We never had the concept of pocket money. There was no concept of pocket money. If you needed something, you just went to your parents and said, hey, can you buy this for me? So 9 out of 10 times you didn't have the courage to walk up to your parents. So you anyway living a very frugal life. But it's in hotel management that for the first time I started getting my own cash. So as students, we used to go to these 5-star hotel banquet functions and private parties at the Piramals and the Ambanis and, all these incredible industrial houses, the Jindals. And you'd basically be a waiter. You'd wear a white pair of white gloves. You'd hold a platter or a salver of champagne tulips or starters, and you just circulate that among the crowd. So that was my first job, and I started making 300, 500 rupees an evening. So finally, I was like, yay, financial independence tastes really good. So whether it was, going somewhere, I had cash in my hand. After hotel management, I was a management trainee with the Taj group of hotels, TMTP, that's a program. And I attribute so much of what I know in life to TMTP, such a phenomenal management traineeship program. Incredible learning, great faculty, great batchmates who are now across the world. After that, got deputed at a gorgeous restaurant called Sea Lounge in Taj Mahal Hotel in Mumbai, which is... it's a poetry in a restaurant. It is so romantic. It's so beautiful. Every single day, I'd just be like, I don't believe it that I'm the assistant manager in this restaurant. But I was getting very restless, Shalini, because after having done hotel management and having seen what ops, which is what F&B is considered, what ops is in a hotel world, you're basically on your feet for 12 to 16 hours every single day. But the process of growth or the kind of fodder that a 20, 21-year-old mind needed, there was a complete cognitive dissonance because, mammoth organizations like Taj Group of Hotels, now, of course, it's very different. But back in the day, they moved really slowly. And when you're 20, 21, you want the world to run with you at 100 kilometers per hour, right? That's what one tries. Meanwhile, somewhere in the middle of all of that, I started maintaining a personal blog because I was fond of writing. Love of languages comes from my mother and love of debates, etc. comes from father. So was always fond of writing, started blogging, happened to share that blog with a couple of journalists who had come to Taj for a wine and cheese evening. Happened to share it with them, got extremely promising and positive feedback from them. They happened to say, hey, if you're interested in writing, maybe you should join us. I was like, what? Wow. Okay. So applied to Indian Express to join a hospitality magazine. Got through, much thrilled about that. But life had other plans. And I got an absolute serendipitous wild card. I consider this man my godfather, my second father, everything. Sanjay Pugalia. He was then the managing editor of CNBC Awaz, a brand new Hindi business channel based on CNBC TV 18, which is the English business channel. And this was only a 6-month-old newsroom. Sanjay ji spotted me at C Lounge and literally offered me a job. And he said, come work with us. And I was like, what? What kind of a prank is this? Those were the days of MTV Bakra. I was like, is there a camera hidden here somewhere? You're definitely making a Bakra out of me. He said, no, absolutely not. I like the way you present yourself. I like the way you speak. He just asked me, do you know Hindi? I said, I don't know if it matters, but I was my school topper in boards in Hindi. I love the language. So he was like, cool, that's it. That's all I need. And I was so naive and so dumb. I had no idea what entailed, right? So I ended up joining CNBC, much to the surprise and shock and almost disappointment of my parents, because who leaves a Tata Group company, right? I mean, we're talking about 2000. You don't do that. It's as good as it gets. To join a brand new media television channel, a news channel with zero background in anything to do with that. But like I said, Sanjay ji saw something in me which I did not know existed. My parents did not know existed, which is why I owe my entire professional life and journey to him. And within 6 months, Charlene, one thing led to the other. Right place, right time. I was always a person putting my hand up for anything that needed to be done, which was new, because I was so hungry to gain all possible knowledge in the newsroom. And people were so kind and generous. Shweta Khanna, my boss, she opened up her pitara of experience and everything. It was literally like getting a crash course of a 3-year media or journalism college in a matter of months, 5 or 6 months. And within 6 months, I was hosting my own half-hour shows on television. Over the next 10 and a half years that I spent at Network 18 and CNBC, I hosted hundreds of shows, traveled to dozens of countries, won dozens of awards, and eventually became the go-to person for science and technology with my show called Tech Guru. So that was my first tryst with what a personal brand looks like and sounds like. So that happened. I crafted a little bit of it, but like I said, a lot of it is serendipity and luck. Right place, right time. Then over the last 15 years, Shalini, I've pretty much stuck to journalism and storytelling. I find journalism a very limiting sort of a name. Also, what is journalism in 2021? Really, it's a bigger, deeper philosophical question. So storytelling is what I was always fond of, and what I've had the good fortune of doing. Started my own company, Content Wala Production, because after leaving CNBC, I built a personal brand of mine called Gadget Wala, because I was only talking about gadgets most of the time. Gadget Wala as a name went on to become incredibly successful, much to my surprise. So started Content Wala. Everybody has that dream, right? Oh my God, I really want to start my own business, because as a corporate slave, that's what you think, the grass is greener on the other side. But only when you get to the other side, you're like, OMG. Nobody told me how incredibly difficult and back-breaking and unreliable the world of entrepreneurship is. So somehow managed to keep it running for close to 2 years. Hated every day of it, because I was just like, मुझे नौकरी करनी है और मुझे 30 तारीख को तनख्वाह चाहिए. I just want my salary slip. I don't want any of this tamjam. So did a bit of that, worked across newsrooms again, went and worked with Sanjay ji at the Quint, then went and worked with First Post. Somewhere in the middle of all of this, I did a year at Big FM. I was a breakfast show radio jockey. Somewhere along all of this, I became a guest faculty at SCM Sophia on mobile journalism and digital content marketing. Somewhere in the middle of all of this, 4 years ago, with my best friend, I started a podcast called Love Aajkal, which is Spotify India original podcast on love, dating, relationships in our current scenario. Somewhere along all of this, in 2019, I got sick of Mumbai, wanted to move to Bangalore. Xiaomi gave a fantastic opportunity, so I left First Post and I became the PR and comms head at Xiaomi India. Came here, spent a year, realized, oh my God, no, PR is not really my cup of tea. And then, of course, in November 2020, in the middle of the pandemic in Bangalore, is when LinkedIn happened. And that's how you discovered me, and that's why I'm here.
Wow. I mean, that is such an amazing story. And I know, Ankit, you often say it's about luck and it's about being in the right place at the right time. And of course, there's always that. But how does one even be in the right place at the right time, What goes behind that?
That's a phenomenally loaded question. So the way it worked for me may or may not work in 2021, Shalini, because fortunately or unfortunately, it's a completely different reality right now. But there are easier hacks, or so to say, launch pads or gateways to being spotted. Right. I'll give you a simple example. This is a part of my life. I grew up in Andheri, Lokhandwala. Right. And it was so easy growing up there because हम गोलगप्पे खाने जाते हैं शाम को and at the golgappa wala, while we are waiting for golgappa to be made for us, there's Amrita Singh and Saif Ali Khan also waiting at the same golgappa wala and they're eating with us. हम शाम को इवनिंग वॉक के लिए जा रहे हैं, वहां पे आमिर खान जूही चावला की मूवी शूट हो रही है. So we grew up, Oshiwara and Lokhandwala was the Bollywood central, right? Everyone was there. And these were days before internet. These were days before paparazzi was a word any of us knew. So we grew up with that glamour world right next to us. So being spotted, even today in Lokhandwala, you see people with dole shole, men with dole shole from Chandigarh and all these places. MTV Roadies really democratized glamour or fame, so to say. And everybody be sitting at, it's actually a funny thing. It's called CCD, CCD, Cafe Coffee Day. People would just sit at Cafe Coffee Days and all these alfresco coffee shops in their really ripped body-hugging T-shirts and outfits and everything, and just wait for producers passing by, driving by to spot them, because a couple of people have been spotted like that. The number one casting director of Yash Raj, she literally just used to work out of Costa Coffee in 7 Bungalows. So that is one way of getting discovered. People have gotten discovered like that. I believe Bhumi Pednekar, one of the actresses, she got spotted at a coffee shop by Shanu, who's the head of casting at Yash Raj. But today, I think interest groups are a fantastic sort of launchpad or gateway. Of course, right now, everybody is still working from home and there's pandemic and everything. But, there used to be a beautiful concept called Twitter boot camps or bar camps, where people of similar interests and similar backgrounds, they would get together. Today, even dating apps have, I think there is one of the apps, I forget the name, but you can have a similar interest with respect to what you've done. Like if you're a finance person and for some odd reason you cannot date anybody else apart from a finance person, then you can actually pick and choose the sector or the industry. So I think interest groups are a fantastic way, but everything's gone online. I'm learning this from people much younger, how these interest groups have now taken the form of Slack channels, of Twitter groups, of online communities. Communities is basically going to run the world because everything's moved online. So today it's really up to you how good your Google search skills are. Because if your interest is, let's say, baking, you can start with Instagram. You can figure out if there are bakers within your geography, and you can connect with them and ask them, hey, can I come learn something with you, or cook with you, or intern with you, or be your assistant? Or you can go and take formal education from a baking school or something like that. Or the best thing, because geography no bar, you can be a part of an online community where there could be a baker from Tel Aviv and from Bangalore and from Brazil. And, there can be information exchange that happens over there. So today, the form of it is online communities on Slack, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, and all the other apps that exist.
Wow. I mean, that's a very important shift. It's a very, very important shift from, needing to meet people physically, and like in your case, and I'm sure it'll always work out, but that's going to perhaps be just one route where you happen to meet somebody in a coffee shop or a restaurant like you did. But perhaps, that's going to be much harder to rely on. And it's the online communities where, with some intentionality, you can begin to both, meet people who have similar interests, and perhaps even begin to discover and voice whatever is your special thing.
Absolutely. I'll give you this one tiny example. It's one of my favorite examples in the last couple of months. There's a beautiful organization called Raha. And the kind of work Raha is doing is the entire artisanal community, Shalini. It's a completely unorganized sector, right? So they don't get any of the benefits, which, let's say, an Anita Dongre or a Sabyasachi fashion label would have, right? Because the artisans are invisible. They're doing the most key work, but they're not getting benefits, they're not getting fair price, and they're invisible. So Raha decided to change this. By the way, Raha was born out of two women, Radhika and Amrita meeting on LinkedIn in the middle of the pandemic. None of them knew each other before that, but because of some interests, they happened. It's happenstance they came up across each other's sort of profile and content. Fun fact: Radhika is in the US. Amrita is in Mumbai. They've never met in person, but they floated a whole new company in the middle of a pandemic to enable artisans and to help them get formalized, etc. That's the beauty of today's reality. Online happenstance, online community, online outreach. I get so upset when people are like, oh, but I can't find something that I like. And I just take a minute. I'm like, okay, Ankit, breathe to 10. Take it easy. Take it easy. Because the promise of the entire world and its resources at your fingertips has been the promise of the internet. That is what we expect digital natives to really embrace and harness, right? So when 20 somethings come to me for mentorship and they're like, oh, I can't find something that I like. I'm like, first, do you understand or do you know? Have you deep dive? Do you know what you like? Even if you have an inkling of what you like, everything's available online. A simple Google search, a simple Instagram, YouTube, Facebook search will throw up dozens of interest groups and people who you can literally send a DM to. It was never ever possible, right? Sifarish ka zamana tha, right? When we were growing up, oh my God, somebody knew somebody, and it was, generally the fathers and the uncles and the moms and the aunties, they would make sifarish ki mere bete ka CV dekh lena. But today you can just shoot your shot to anybody in the world.
Let me share a little bit of a secret that my co-founders, Papia Banerjee and Jaspreet Bindra, I met online first. And then we had in-person meetings. But, our company is also a lockdown baby. So, we were born during the pandemic. And majority of our work happened virtually. But our first meetings were all, and Papia said that right there, we met first online, and the majority of our guests, and we have amazing guests on this show, are not people whom I ever knew, before I started this show, but they're people whom I got to know while doing the show. So I absolutely agree with you. I think the world has changed so much. One, this whole, geography matters far less than interest. And if you're interested in the same sort of topics like future of work for us, then it brings together people from anywhere in the world, and that connection it has a completely different flavor to connections in the past. So it's a very, very different world. Okay, one question I have for you, and this is a question which a lot of young people have. A lot of young people have parents who grew up in a different world. And I myself am a mom to 20-somethings. So, a lot of parents believe...
Are you doing this podcast basically to show it to them, Charlene?
You got me there. I did ask them to log on. So, a lot of us grew up in a time when there were like career paths that we could depend on, right? So you started off, and in college, people would ask you, "Beta kya banna hai?" Is line mein jana hai, us line mein jana hai. Do you want to do finance? Do you want to do marketing, HR? Whatever it is. And they were like these paths, and there was this belief that they were actually like roads, and that somehow if you just landed up in one end and you just kept walking along, your career was managed like that. But all the research that we're encountering suggests that the vast majority of careers, in 2030, which is really not that far off, haven't even been invented as yet. So, and we've been seeing over this last decade that, the career ladder, if at all, is no more than 2 or 3 rungs till, you almost have to get on to another kind of a ladder. So there's been such a big shift in the way careers over the last decade have been, and will increasingly be over the next 10 years. So with that very long intro, what advice would you have for young people who are just starting to think about, how do I develop a career which, I don't even know where that's taking me. I don't even know what jobs will be there in 2030.
That's, of course, the $1 million question, right? And I don't even remotely want to give the impression that I have the right answer for it, because I've seen the repertoire of guests that you've had here, the Whartons and the Yales and the Harvards. And again, it's it's flattering yet sort of scary to follow up that lineup of guests here. But I will share things which are my personal insights from my own lived experience and journey. I wouldn't hazard giving anybody an advice on this, but maybe something that has happened with me may find resonance with what they may want to do. I personally think, Shalini, that the dismantling of the career path is the greatest gift of this generation. It's liberating. It's so liberating because, unfortunately, and we've seen so much fun in pop culture and media and movies about this. I think Three Idiots में वो डायलॉग था ना कि बच्चा पैदा नहीं हुआ और मतलब अस्पताल में डिलीवरी रूम में ही डिसाइड कर लिया माँ बाप ने कि ये इंजीनियर बनेगा या डॉक्टर बनेगा या बनेगी. So which is why it's liberating. So for people who are right now in college and graduating and are entering the workforce, it can also be extremely intimidating. And the reason I say that is there's no reference point. There's no predecessor. You can't run to your bade bhaiya or your mom or your aunt or your uncle or your father and ask, how do I do this? How do I navigate this? There's no reference point. And because everybody is so unmoored and unhinged, there's a bit of anxiety and there's a bit of, oh my God, how will this work out and chart out, etc. But the beautiful thing is today, of course, internet makes everything hyper visible and people are oversharers. So they share all the struggles and failures and the triumphs and victories. But humankind has always struggled with this, right? With every new invention, humanity, whether it is electricity, whether it is the invention of the wheel, whether it is the internet, we've always struggled with, oh my God, what's going to happen? And also the number of doomsdayers who are like, oh, this is going to be the end of it. You know, when television and radio came, it's going to be the end of the newspaper. When internet came, everything traditional is going to die. Traditional media is thriving. You know, more print magazines are thriving today than ever before internet. So the point is, number one, it can be liberating. Number two, the way I have gone about it is I have been blessed with a mind which is perpetually curious. I didn't ask for it. I just got it. That's the genetic lottery I got. And then, of course, I've honed it and cultivated it and just, given it much more fodder. So most of the careers, I believe, in the future will be interest-led. And because human beings are not unidimensional, they're multidimensional. And what you feel interested in also changes with time, whether it's a person or a place or a career or an interest area. People will have beautiful, flowerful, interesting, colorful careers. And I can't wait to do that, or I can't wait to see that happen. Right? I'm 38 right now, but I'm already thinking of 5 things which I've never done and I want to do. One of which includes obviously running a complete organic farm and a restaurant where kids and families can come and pluck their own vegetables, etc. And there'll be an open air walk and people can toss their own, noodles and salads. Everything's organic. There's kombucha, there's art, there's music, there's a ton of animals. I want to do that. I need to figure out how I need to make that happen. But point is, interests will keep changing, and hence the job that one may do will keep changing. I think the challenge is for parents and for the older generation to let go of the perception that the career needs to be in a certain way. Obviously, there's nothing stopping anybody from picking one job and one company and sticking out there for 30, 40, 50 years. There's a certain amount of grace and elegance and, beauty about that. Stories of sushi masters or sword makers in Japan who just do that one thing and one thing only for 30, 40 years, resulting in a kind of excellence which most humanity would never even come close to. There are those stories for inspiration as well, right? But most of the people around, they start with a generic course like some business administration or some MBA. I don't think people are really doing courses for a particular kind of knowledge. They're doing it because either they are buying time to figure out, okay, what do I really want to do? Or you're doing that course from that particular campus for access to the faculty or the network or the doors that may open up for you. So those are, I really think education will have to be rethought completely as well, right? Because that, fortunately or unfortunately, has been the only pipeline for launching careers. The other big disruption I feel will happen, which is what I have seen from my own life and career. I'd never done radio before. Of course, I was a television show anchor. But when the opportunity came, I was like, of course, I want to try this out. I had never launched my own business before. I had never run a production house before, but I felt it and I did it. So, between feeling and doing it, um, hopefully people will get bolder and bigger risk takers. Because I say this to a lot of my friends who ask me, I'm 38, friends who are 35, 40, 45. They're like, I really want to do this, yeah, but pata nahi, what if I fail? And I'm like, you've been working for the last 15 to 20 years. If you fail, you have the safety net and cushion of whatever else you've done, right? You can always fall back on that. But to grow older and bitter and saying, I wish I would have done that when I was 40 or 45, what a waste that would be, right? So, multiple interest areas that will have really colorful careers. Okay, so it has to be interest led. Number two, the dismantling of career paths is a gift. We may not be able to see it because our mind is habituated to a linear career path, right? Nothing wrong with that, but different strokes for different folks. The beauty of it is there's a variety on this buffet of life and careers today, which wasn't available 10, 20, 30 years ago. And number three, the most important thing, and I'm so inspired by my own mom for doing this, there is no timeline for pivoting your career at all. At the age of 50, after both her kids were sort of settled and dad was always busy, my mom went back to the classroom, Mumbai University. She did MA in Pali language. Between the age of 50 and 60, she didn't just do MA, she did MPhil, and she teaches Pali language to people across the world. Throughout the pandemic, Dubai, US, Singapore, India, she's been giving Zoom lectures. She crafted a whole new path for her at the age of 50. So the beauty of everything going remote and online and geography no bar is you could be sitting in Gurgaon and you could be taking a fantastic class and appreciation of single malt from a distillery in Scotland, and you could be 65 years old and you can do that. This one post which is going viral on Instagram and all the digital newsrooms is 3 friends who are 60 plus. They literally went on the road trip from Chandigarh to Chennai and they gallivanted all over the country and they were back. And people are so shocked. And I'm like, oh my God, why are you so shocked? If this is what people have worked towards their whole life, they're finally living it. And thanks to the internet, it's finally coming out in the open. The other big thing, and I'm as you can tell, I'm a huge fan of everything Japan and Japanese culture because there are hidden gems over there which are incredible. My first trip to Tokyo was 2 years ago. And I said to my dad when I came back that for me, Japan is a masterclass in how to age well. I'm sure you've read the book Ikigai, right? People in Okinawa, why do they end up being the healthiest and the longest living people in the world? Because Ikigai, they've found or they have made an attempt to find their Ikigai, their reason of being, reason of living. And Japan is a walking textbook or masterclass in Ikigai, right? Whether I'm going to eat sushi, next table, 60, 65-year-old aunties sipping beer, eating sushi, laughing, roaring, having so much fun. We are not used to seeing that in India. Because I don't know, we have a mentality ki haan bhai ab to umar ho gayi hamari, ab kya struggle karna, kar liya jo karna tha. So I think a lot of this rewiring will need to happen, and hopefully it will all happen simultaneously. The 20 somethings will do their own rewiring and their own redefining, but fortunately there'll also always be examples of 60, 70, 80-year-olds who are doing completely new things, and because of the internet it now comes in front of us. One of the biggest YouTubers in India, Charlene, was a 100-year plus woman in the village, and her grandson was making YouTube videos for her, village cooking. And that started an entire movement of countryside village cooking YouTube videos and channels. So you're only limited by your own enterprise and your message of telling yourself whether you can do it, you're right. Whether you can't do it, you're right. You're only limited by the cage of your own mind, right?
That's so well said, Ankit. Actually, I agree with you. I think the career path sort of vanishing or the career ladders sort of vanishing or at least becoming way shorter, it's hugely liberating. It's also liberating in another way. So, if we just talk about your own career, you were a good fit for this role because of stuff you had done earlier out of interest. And, whether that took on a certain path or it didn't, it prepared you for where you are today, which is the other big question that, when jobs which are going to be there in 2030 still don't exist. How do you prepare for them? And just based on your example and what you're saying, it sounds like one way might be to pick up things you're really, really interested in and use online digital platforms to build interest groups where people get to know about you, and you have a chance to sort of really have a voice, at least digitally. We've got tons of comments, and I'm going to take some of them.
I can't see any of the comments, but please share. But I also want to add 2 things to that. Oh, wait, I can see comments. Wow, Ankit. Wow, I just had a eureka moment on StreamYard.
It's not your platform, see, so I have to tell you.
But I want to add a couple of things, but please, let's take some of the comments.
There are lots of people who are saying hi to you.
Hello to everyone. Thank you. Thank you for all your kind comments.
Hi, Ajay. Hi, Rajveer. Hi, great to see you, Papya. Dheeraj. Dheeraj says, amazing. Good to hear you, Ankit. Aman says, Ankit is the first tech journalist who introduced me to technology through Tech Guru. Hi, Vishal. Vishal, as a common observation on your colorful bow tie. Isha, on the power of sharing your work, and I guess this is probably the point when we were talking about interest groups and digital platforms as well.
Well, I'm always learning from Isha herself. She's such an incredibly talented digital branding, marketing person, content person.
Well, thanks for joining us, Isha. Vishnu, hello, Ankit. Today I'm very grateful to have met Ankit. Oh, thanks. Thanks, Vishnu. Vanshika says, Ankit speaks so well. Such a pleasure to listen to him. Absolutely true. Papia, thanks for the awesome story. Shelley asks, what do you think were the potential barriers toward this end? Now,
sorry, what's the question?
So I think the question was in reference to something we were discussing at the time. So probably she may have meant potential barriers to maybe being in the right place at the right time.
We'll talk about that when we talk about personal branding.
Ajay, Ankit is such a spontaneous speaker. Leena, from corporate to entrepreneur, I can fully understand what could be a painful start. Vanshika, online is the new way. Papia asks, how does one go about creating a strong personal brand? That's a point I'm just going to come to. Anushri asks, career pivot generally is a purposeful shift in a new related direction. In your case, it was a 180 degree with both industry and role change from hospitality, media, entrepreneurship, and now LinkedIn. What factors should be kept in mind on your risk appetite and experimentation? How do you manage during low periods? What gives you the confidence to carry on? I think that's a great question.
It's a phenomenal question, Anushri Verma. Thank you so much for asking that. And, unfortunately, internet is not completely honest because people choose to share an incredibly well curated, well sanitized, PR vetted version of their lives on the internet. And that's so true even for me, right? Now I'm extremely comfortable sharing my lows on the internet where I have no qualms saying I'm struggling with this, or mentally I'm in a really, really bad place. How are you guys coping with this? Or how are you dealing with this? Through my low periods, I think one thing, Anushri, I will give credit to is the fact that when I was growing up and building my career, there was no internet and there was no social media. So the biggest, and I say this with full knowledge of the weight of the words that I'm saying because I've been a tech journalist for 15, 16 years. But the biggest impediment and yet the biggest catalyst to personal growth in today's time is the internet and social media. And I think the most successful people or careers of the future will come down to this one simple superpower of people, how and when they can tune up and completely tune off from the internet and social media. That's going to be the biggest superpower. Sorry, there's a fighter jet that's flying over my head. So in case there's disturbance. In my low period, Anushri, I have been unbelievably lucky again to find incredible pillars of support in my life in terms of friends and colleagues and mentors. I was saying this to Charlene when we were doing the pre-interview. I have been so fortunate to have the strongest of women in my life, the strongest of women. And I seek inspiration from strong women throughout my life, and I'll do that till my last breath. Right from my mom to my grandmother to my cousins, and everyone that has played a pivotal role in my life, in my personal life, in my professional life. It has, except for Mr. Sanjay Pugalia, who's a man, it has only been women who have guided me, who've shown me the path, who've given me a helping hand, who've said a word of encouragement and confidence. And that, I mean, the strength of a woman is unlike anything else. So if you're lucky to have that by your side, of course, there will be dark periods, etc. But with the strength of a woman, you will be able to tide over all of that. Um, and the third thing, fortunately, I was lucky enough to be born in a family that was very spiritually minded, Shalini. And 20 years ago, my mother and father, they got introduced to Vipassana meditation. They introduced me to Vipassana. At the age of 16, I did my yoga teacher's training course. So I was introduced to yoga at a very young age. So with the combination of yoga and Vipassana, meditation and spirituality, the conversations at home were always very, very grounding. They were not so much about, they were almost never about materialistic things and money. Never. They were always about spiritual things and grounding and how to be a better human being first. Because everything else is dikhawa. The one main capital that stays with you is the kind of person you are and what positive impact you can have on people around you. So that has been sort of the guiding force for me. So like I said, again, genetic lottery. One can't decide where one is born. One is just lucky into it. So I saw one question that I think yahan pe Prince Yadav was asking, Ankit, can you give some advice to someone who comes from very humble background and from a remote place? Prince Yadav, this is the lottery ticket that one is born with, right? So maybe somebody who's born in a metro city to slightly middle class or affluent parents, maybe they have to struggle slightly lesser. But the beauty of it is, Prince, that there's only one direction to go from here, which is up. So whatever you do will only take you one step ahead. And that's the beauty of where you are. So it's good to remind oneself that, sure, you're in a humble place, but you can only go up. Even if it is adha inch, 1 centimeter, 1 foot, a mile, you can only go up from here, right? So that's one part. And second part, because of the internet is the greatest leveler in the history of humanity. It doesn't care which small town you're from. It doesn't care whether your English is immaculate, ya tuta futa English. It does not care for that. It cares what you're interested in, and it cares what value you can bring to the table, right? That's why internet is so life-changing, right? Not just because there are incredible cat videos that we can watch all weekend, that too, but that's the beauty of it. So Prince, apne aap ko internet pe kaise aap, एक strong presence बना सकते हो, I would say focus on that. And just be comfortable with who you are. The earlier you own up, this is me, and not be ashamed of, oh my God, but, I got the short end of the stick. No, a pity party is never going to help, right?
So, Ankit, I'm just going to ask you about personal branding in a moment, but I think you said something very important, which I want to make sure doesn't get lost. Anushri, to your question, which is, by the way, a great question. I think with the kind of uncertainty all of us are going to be experiencing in our careers, it simultaneously makes it even more important to have anchors of certain kinds. And Ankit spoke about both kinds of anchors, the anchors of people in your life who are there with you through the low times, but also other anchors like your own ability to, find your own inner space. And, that becomes important it was always important, but now it becomes way more important because outside everything is changing so much. And it's so much harder to rely on, what's coming up than perhaps it ever was. So with that, actually, Ankit, let's dive into personal branding, because I know that's something you've done amazingly well. I think you became aware of the idea before many others did. And that's played perhaps an important role in your being able to get to do the kind of work that you have, because people already knew of your work and knew who you were also perhaps as a person. So what advice would you give people about the nuts and bolts of personal branding? Like, how does one even start thinking about it?
That's such a great question, and frankly, should just be a 3-year course in institutions, etc. In this new reality that we're in, maybe there's an idea there, Shalini, uncube, and we could do something together around it. But you're right. I was lucky. I got lucked into getting a personal brand built on national television, no less. Before YouTube, before Instagram, before Facebook, before any of this was there. And television is still, it's one of the biggest mediums in the country in terms of reach and impact. What really, warms my heart, Shalini, is I think 2007 is when, just after the first Apple iPhone had launched, is when I started Tech Group. It's 2021. It's been 14 years. And there are people who are in school, young kids who now come to me. They've gotten married, they've gotten kids. And they're like, because of you, we got interested in technology, and our life and career in engineering or information technology or science started. So that was just a fun anecdote. Okay, personal brand. It all comes down to what you want to be known for. So reverse engineer that, right? So Charlene Lal is an executive with over 3 decades in HR, but वो तो भूतकाल में है, भविष्यकाल में क्या है? So personal brand for me, number one step would be भविष्यकाल में, in the future, who do you want to be known as? Unfortunately, whether it is our job interviews, whether it is our CVs, whether it is everything, all we talk about is what we've done. But that's already done. So why waste time talking about that unless there's insights or anything from there? But why not talk about what your ideas are, what your dreams are, what your goals are, what your aspirations are in the future, rooted in what is my talent currently in the present. So this trifecta of having an insight or perspective of what you've done in the past, but with a clear eye on your North Star in the future and how you are harnessing your skills and talents in the present, in तीनों का जब अचार successful बनेगा, then that's a beautiful pickle called a personal brand, right? And it helps that if you have a quirky name attached to it. I was always clear that when I made Gadgetwala, for example, the name, I was very clear. I wanted to be idiot proof. I don't want it to be so esoteric and so lateral or tangential that people have no idea what's coming here. Okay. B, I love India and I love Hindi, the language. So I needed a Hindi-English aspect to it. So Wala immediately became that. And I don't know, maybe growing up in Lokhandwala played some part for it. I don't know. So Gadgetwala became that. But also what's very important, Shalini, is after having birthed and growing Gadgetwala for almost six or 7 years, it's very important. And this is where, again, I'm sorry if I'm coming across as somebody who's talking to frou-frou with the spirituality thing, but in yoga, in Ashtanga Yoga, there are 8 sutras, there are 8 precepts of all yogic practice. And one of that, and these are all 8 principles to live a beautiful life by, right? One of the principles is something called aparigraha. Okay, aparigraha, old word, but what it means in modern day age is don't keep anything with you that doesn't serve a purpose. Unfortunately, we have a holding mentality today, right? So marry condo the daylights out of your life, right? Minimalism today is a buzzword. It's been a buzzword in Indian culture and scriptures for thousands of years. Aparigraha in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra is a beautiful example of that, right? So what is aparigraha? What am I letting go of in modern day with my personal brand? I really don't care about mobile phones and gadgets anymore, Shalini. And it took a job at Xiaomi to understand that as a baker who can never eat chocolates because, oh my God, you're seeing chocolate every day, all day, 24/7. You're never going to cherish a chocolate in your life, right? Because ati ho gayi hai us cheez ki. Too much overexposure has happened. So I was overexposed to technology and mobile phones for 10, 15 years of my life. Now, I appreciate different kinds of technology, but not mobile phones. So I found a dissonance between my online brand and where I am mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. So then I was like, okay, that's it. When I quit Xiaomi, I was like, that's it. I need to retire my personal brand. There's no Gadgetwala anymore. It cannot be because I just don't feel comfortable. Also, it's limiting, right? The personal brand, because now I care more about, let's say, social impact businesses. I care more about helping young kids on mentorship. That's what I care about. Literally, that's my life's mission now. So how can whatever my personal brand is reflect that? And that's when I pivoted from Tech Guru to Gadgetwala, and now from Gadgetwala to just today. So my personal brand right now across everything is Ankit.today.
I
Let's
did
talk about
notice that.
yeah,
Yeah.
let's talk about what we can do today. What's the one step, that one kind word, anything that you can do today that can positively impact your future? So that is the brand that now I'm building, which is the Today brand. So that is steeped very clearly in who I am and where I am today emotionally. So one has to constantly keep auditing that, right? Because it's very easy to just build something, and then even if it's not working or exciting you, or Sachin Tendulkar, I love what he says about cricket, right? The day I will feel like I am not excited about putting on my pads and boots and going into the pitch and batting, I'm going to hang my boots. That's exactly what Sachin Tendulkar, one of the greatest sports people, did in his life, right? And there are examples all around. Why? ये आई थिंक हमारे कल्चर में चीजों को खींचना ये बहुत ज्यादा नॉर्मल है. You're going on doing something even if it's not really sparking joy, because हाँ अब तो भैया उम्र हो गई है, अब क्या स्ट्रगल करना. So my mom rebranded herself at 50.
You spoke. But yes, Ankit, I'll tell you one of the things I really like, which for me was personally insightful. The fact that your brand has to be speaking to today and tomorrow and not the past, because I think that's incredibly easy to get stuck in. And I'm going to connect this with something you said earlier in the conversation about, interest groups, digital communities, digital presence, and all of this coming around who you want to be, and sort of the future drawing out where you are today, and that being a key principle in how to build a personal brand. I haven't heard that as much before, so that is pretty different. What
Wow.
then?
I'm feeling glad that I'm saying something that you haven't heard before, Shalini, considering you speak to the best minds in the world.
No, absolutely, Ankit. And tell me, what are the nuts and bolts? Like, how does one, should one search for interest groups, platforms, and then, like, how does one start?
I always start with as simple as booking a domain name. So Ankit.today is a website. And it's a beginning. It's a first step. I always start over the last 10, 15 years. I must have bought over 30, 40, 50 domain names, Shalini. Every time there's a new idea that, oh, this is what I want to be, this is who I want to, this is what I want to do, I go and book a domain name because it's a couple of $100. It's not really that expensive, etc. Right? Except my website for the podcast, loveajkal.com, because vanity URL, right? I don't even remember. We paid some 40, 50,000 rupees for the URL or something like that. But it's worth it, because it's going to be there. It's posterity. So today, your first tactical step has to be either booking a domain name for what you think is a personal brand, or you can do your own A/B testing with your friends, online audiences, community that, hey, what do you think of this name, that name? This is what I want to talk about. Please get and seek feedback actively, because you don't know anything, because nobody knows anything. Everything is super fluid. Everybody is just trying to wing it and trying to show that, yes, I know everything, right? And there are so many podcasts from people who pretend that they know everything, but everybody is just struggling. So, there's that. Figure out a domain name. Please build a website or get in touch with people who make good websites. In 2021, it's surprising and shocking how most people don't have a good website. Think of that as literally your birth certificate on the internet. Okay. Number two, you have to spread yourself across all social media. So you have to have your accounts on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or whichever other app that you think is of interest to you. Okay. Number three, and this I think can be according to me, this should be the biggest takeaway from this session. If you take back anything, it should be this one thing. It does not matter if you are a coder, developer, engineer, doctor, nurse, social media person, marketer, NGO worker, anything. The world belongs to those people who are great storytellers. That's it. So you may be making a soap, or you may be making industrial equipment, which is a B2B business. If you are not good at storytelling, then you're not really going to get the bounty of incredible results that today's information economy, knowledge economy can award you. So, whatever you do, whatever your interest area, whatever your vocational training, first learn to become a storyteller. And which is where I'm coming from. How do you become a storyteller? Build yourself a website, build yourself social media accounts, and then be consistent with whatever you're sharing, which could be your domain knowledge. You know, Shalini, my favoriteest examples of storytellers on the internet, and I used to say this in my college lectures all the time. There's a gorgeous human being. His name is Chris Hadfield. He's a Canadian astronaut. And this man was stationed on the International Space Station, thousands of kilometers from Earth. And he's there with his guitar and he sings David Bowie's Space Oddity. And he released that song from the International Space Station with planet Earth in the window. That was his view. Okay. And I tell this to my journalism class students, if an astronaut can become a good storyteller, it's literally not rocket science. You can become a good storyteller. You know, so you have to become a storyteller. My favoriteest creators on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok are chiropractors, dentists, carpenters, lumberjacks, yoga trainers, who are amazing content creators because they have realized and embraced the idea that no matter what you do in life, you have to be your sales and marketing department, your own social media marketing manager, and your own content writer and content marketer. So you have to become a storyteller.
There's a question from Seema. She asks, how do you sift through your existing skills from various fields and show them for a new career?
Well, fortunately for me, Seema, since day one, I've been interested in storytelling, and everything that I've done in my life, in some form or manner, has been along that spectrum of storytelling. Whether it is radio jockeying, whether it is television show anchoring, whether it is working with newsrooms. What is news? You're telling stories. You're telling stories about what's happening on ground in an unbiased, objective manner. Whether it is podcast, whether it is, you know, we spoke about this, Shalini. In the middle of the pandemic, I tried telling another story with the help of Didi's Kitchen. Saroj Didi, my house help. We started this home catering food business. People did not buy the Mangalorean crab curry from Saroj Didi. People bought the story of Saroj Didi, whose husband passed away when she was 17, when she had 3 kids, and has just done odd jobs and cleaned and cooked at people's houses. Today, there was a home food business that was enabling her to become a female entrepreneur. A lady who can barely speak English or Hindi, is a Kannada resident, Karnataka resident speaking Kannada. They bought the story. The brands that resonate with us, the individuals that resonate with us will resonate, continue to, because we are fundamentally storytellers. Yuval Noah Harari, the greatest writer of human history, this amazing Israeli writer. If you guys haven't read Sapiens, what are you doing? Please go read all his books. Homo Deus Sapiens, 21 Solutions for 21st Century Problems. He says the number one reason Homo sapiens became the dominant species on this planet among millions of species is because we are storytellers. Nothing else. Not because we have 2 opposable thumbs. It's because we are storytellers.
Yeah, no, it was a great book. There's a great question by Sakshi, and it's a question I think which a lot of introverts wonder about. How can introverts network and build their personal brand?
Well, fortunately,
Okay.
Believe it or not, Shalini, I've been the biggest introvert growing up. But I chose a field of hotel management, which doesn't care if you're an introvert or no. You have to go walk up to the guest and you have to make conversation. I was telling you about this. Saturday mornings, once a month, Mr. Ratan Tata would come for breakfast. And I, as assistant manager of Sea Lounge, would be in charge of ensuring his order is up to speed with whatever he wants, which was always standard, and going and making conversations. Imagine being a 20, 21-year-old and going and chatting up with Mr. Ratan Tata or people of his stature, right? So my introversion was told that, dude, like you can be an introvert later, but abhi kaam karna hai, you really have to deliver. So, but Sakshi, I think the beauty of the internet is there's an interest group for everybody. No, it doesn't discriminate where you are on your sexuality spectrum or orientation. It does not care what race you're from, what language you're from. Ideally, good, healthy platforms, they don't care. So seek platforms where you can find people like you, voices like you. And also, it's okay to reevaluate these labels for oneself all the time. Only because you've been a certain person at a certain point in time. I was an introvert for the first 16, 18 years of my life. Today, I'm an ambivert. There are weekends when I will go and socialize with a dozen people in one weekend. There are months where I will not see a single person throughout weekends because I just want to, re-energize myself, and I want to do that with my own downtime. So find interest groups of yourself and connect with other introverts. And please read this outstanding book. Everyone should read it. It's by Susan Cain and it's called Quiet. And she makes such great observations about how extroverts are making so much noise and taking over workplaces everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, Sakshi, there's a lot of research which suggests that introverts do quite well online because, you have the luxury of choosing when and how you engage. And I mean, I'm an introvert. I've always been an introvert. So I found that it really does work. I realize, Ankit, we are at the hour. Do you think we can extend for like 5-7 minutes? Is that all right by you? Because there are a few
Absolutely.
questions.
I just want to leave one tip for personal branding, one tip for your career, one tip for figuring out what to do when you don't know what vocation or what field is going to be in demand 10, 20, 30 years from now. And it all comes down to one word, which is attitude. That's it. The day is not far when you will not be hired for what your degree is in. I mean, that's exactly what Sanjay Pugalia did 15, 18 years ago. He didn't care that I'm a hotel management graduate. He didn't care that I am a waiter in a restaurant or a manager in a restaurant. He hired me because he found an attitude fit. He found a sense of service, which is exactly what my job was in hotels or restaurants. He found that I was keen on going and talking to people and finding out their stories and making conversations, which is exactly the skill that you need to be a good journalist and a good storyteller. He found that I had a flair for language and presentation and body language. But above everything, he found that I had an attitude to learn and do things I may not have vocational training in. On LinkedIn News, we keep doing these LinkedIn Lives and we speak to so many guests who are all head honchos of corporate India and India Inc., right? The number one thing, it's almost become a personal project where I wait to hear what this particular guest is going to ask, because we ask, what are you looking for in brand new students and career starters when you're hiring people? The number one thing they say is, do they have an attitude of learning? They don't say, do they have an Ivy League MBA? Are they from Harvard or Yale or Wharton or Cornell? They don't really ask about that. Because what they are really keen on is 5 years from now, 10 years from now, if blockchain and AI and ML and biotech and everything's going to change the way we know world exists, does this person have the mental aptitude and attitude to reskill himself or herself and pivot herself or himself every 3 to 5 years? Those are the kind of people who will forever keep climbing the career ladder and corporate ladder. So attitude.
Ankit, I can't let you go without asking you something about how people can be better networkers on LinkedIn. So are there a couple of things you can tell people that you wish people understood better about the platform?
Follow amazing people and literally just copy and do whatever they are doing. Everything awesome that has to be done in this world has already been invented. Pretty much. So why reinvent the wheel? Just follow what amazing people are doing. That's exactly what I do. I copy and I take ideas from people all the time. Well, it's not copy, it's taking creative inspiration from them. But literally just do what amazing people are doing. Look at Adam Grant. Look at Simon Sinek. Look at all of these, we have top voices. We came up with top voices next gen on LinkedIn News. Look at the top voices. Look at what they are doing. there was this, I think Vanchika was here. I don't know if she's still here. Look at what Vanchika Mehta is doing. People like Vanchika who are amazing, prolific content creators. 1 year ago, they were not doing stuff on LinkedIn. But within a year, they've had such amazing results. They've built entire brands and businesses. So just follow amazing people and do whatever they're doing.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Now I'm also going to look at maybe some of the pages a lot more carefully that you've mentioned. No, but that's really wonderful to know. Ankit, I just am taking so many of these ideas that you've shared. The whole idea about interest groups becoming such a dominant way of building a career. The fact that your career is first going to be built, or your brand is first going to be built online today.
Shalini, sorry to interrupt you, but there's a question which a member has sent, and this I'm glad he's asking this. Dr. Pramod Sadar Joshi is asking, Ankit, A, why have you had so many job changes? B, why such pathetically short stints in each job? Thank you so much, Dr. Pramod, for asking that and for thinking that I've had pathetically short stints in each job. Dr. Pramod, I live my life with a very simple rule. If I am not interested in something or someone, I don't do it. So I give myself the opportunity to realize whether I like something or I don't like something. I moved cities to Bangalore. I joined Xiaomi. I was the PR and comms head for India's #1 technology brand. And I allowed myself the opportunity to realize that I do not like PR and comms. And accordingly, then I pivoted to something that I like doing, which is journalism. I started a business. I gave myself the opportunity to realize, okay, I'm bad at it. I'm terrible at cash flow management. I am a failure at this. It's okay. I don't have to be a winner and successful at everything. So I will stop doing this. So Pramod, I think giving yourself the opportunity or the leeway or being generous and kind with yourself, that it's okay. You're not liking this. You don't owe anything to anybody. You don't owe anybody an explanation. You don't owe 10 years of your life to any company or organization. If you're not liking something, walk away. Do something that you like. Life is too short.
So well said, and I don't think I could top off the conversation any better. So on that note, thank you so much, Ankit. This was such a joy. I mean, I know that I'm going to be like listening back to this interview and thinking of the 3 or 4 things I can do differently, and of course share with all our viewers and audience. So for everyone who joined us today, thank you so much for joining us. As you could tell, Ankit had so much to share, so many great ideas about building personal brands, having interest groups that you can make your presence felt in, the importance of passion and interest, and how broken career ladders and broken career paths are in fact an opportunity, how reinvention will happen for 20-somethings and reinvention will happen for 50 and 60-somethings, and that doesn't matter anymore. And even the fact that so long as you have a strong enough, personal brand and resilience, moving from one industry or one role to the other is a risk worth taking, because it leads to, in Ankit's word, beautiful careers. So with that, thank you very much. We have another great conversation coming up next Saturday, and that's going to be on innovation in frontline teams with a professor from Rotterdam Business School. Do join me then, and have a great rest of the weekend. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Charlene.